11 right now. These are clearly difficult days for Indianapolis, in particular when it comes to police and the people they serve. Last month, an officer was shot to death on duty, and that unified the city in grief. But this month, 2 men died from police gunfire, and that revealed ruptures in the relationship. IMPD Chief Randall Taylor is with us this morning from his office. Chief, thanks for making time for us this morning. We appreciate it.
Good morning.
Let's talk about the back-to-back shootings we had earlier this month. Very different circumstances, and we'll get into that. But where do the investigations into each of those stand? When might we see answers?
So in both those investigations, they're still ongoing. In the one involving Mr. Reed at 62nd in Michigan, Prosecutor Mears has asked for a special prosecutor. I don't believe that person has been identified yet, but I won't be able to comment on that until I have conversations with him or her. So I really can't speak to that one, but even in the other one with Mr. McHale, that investigation is ongoing. As you probably know, whenever we have a police action shooting, those investigations are really twofold. You have one that's the criminal investigation, and you have one that is the administrative investigation, and they run parallel to each other. But we're still in the beginning stages, so unfortunately I couldn't tell you in the one with Mr. Reed how long that will be. Like I said, I have to discuss whatever I would release with that special prosecutor, and in Mr. McHale, that one may move a little bit quicker, but I'm not at liberty to say how much longer before I can put out information on that one.
When it comes to the first shooting, you've already taken some action even in advance of the final investigative decisions. The flashpoint may have happened actually after the gunfire. Somebody said flippantly on that Facebook Live that it looked like Dre'Shawn Reed would need a closed casket. You said fairly quickly afterward that was a detective, not the officer who fired the shot. So what were the discipline options you had? Why did you decide on a suspension and reassignment?
Well, I would agree with most of the community that was uncalled for, is very unprofessional, and I sympathize with the community on that. But I did have a discussion with that officer, and they were very remorseful about it, but I still felt it warranted that multiple days suspension, as well as reassigning him to a different unit in order to send a message.
You know quite well that many people wanted him fired. Was that ever a possibility?
I think I would have a hard time convincing a merit board that that's what would have had to happen. You know, a lot of times what I'll do, or chiefs before me as well, will look at a matrix, which is just a system that we have that gives you know, a standard discipline for different things. So if an officer speaks poorly, typically that might be something as little as a reprimand or a day. I felt this was more serious than that, so that's why I gave multiple days, and then the reassignment. And then there's also a learning packet that goes with that to make sure the officer is indeed truly remorseful and truly understands the gravity of what transpired there. So after speaking with him, I felt that the discipline that I chose was just.
Dre'Shawn Reed's parents are not stoking anger against officers. It's worth revisiting some of the comments that they and a representative made about whether to use Reed's name in anti-police imagery. Let's listen to this, and then I want your thoughts on it.
I don't want anything to happen and to be connected to the memory of Dre'Shawn Reed, because he was a peacemaker. He was. I don't want this family to have to hurt anymore because something has been done in the name of Dre'Shawn Reed.
That's not my son. My son didn't believe that. So no matter what nobody say, he didn't believe that, so take it off.
You have to be aware of what people say in the aftermath of things like that. Was that an important thing for the family to say in trying to repair any fractures in the relationship between police and the people they serve?
Well, sure it was. You know, I spoke with them briefly, and I know they're hurting, but I do appreciate them getting out in front of that and requesting that protesters or other people on social media don't get into disagreements or threats of violence towards our officers. I don't think that would serve any purpose, and I certainly understand they don't want anything like that connected with the death of their son.
Second shooting was very different. Investigators feel it was an ambush. Both critics of the police department and police officers have said you need body cameras to answer questions that might come from things like that. As a final question for you, I know the plan is announced, but do we have specifics? When do you think your officers on the street may be wearing body cameras in Indianapolis?
Well, the goal is to get them out around July, August. So we'll fit 1,100 initially. Those are the operations personnel, the people that the officers you see on the street. So they'll get them first, and then the hope is that we add to some specialty units and some detectives as well. So I think the community will be happy with that. You know, these would have been in place a little bit earlier if we had a technology infrastructure that could have supported it. Fortunately now I believe we have that, and the cameras should be supported. And they have some nice features. So as we get closer to that rollout, we'll make sure that the public gets a chance to see those and understand how they work, and the different things that utility, which is the vendor that we're going to be using, the different things that they have that remove the responsibility from the officer to hit record. Certain things like their lights coming on in their car, if they have to unsnap their weapon, different things like that will cause the camera to come on automatically. So that's a safety feature for the officers, but I think the community will find benefit to that as well.
We'll be very eager to see those and share that with our viewers when you have the opportunity to see those devices up close. Chief Taylor, thank you for being with us this morning. I know your workday is just about to really get started, so we appreciate the time you've taken with us.
You're very welcome.
7:18 right now. We're at 57 degrees outside. Stephanie's watching the